It is festival season and the iconic Glastonbury Festival is getting underway. The event includes Sir Elton John, Guns N' Roses, Lana Del Rey. More than 200,000 people or more are expected to attend. Now, tickets for the 2023 edition sold out in an hour when they went on sale in November, so I guess they're all sold out. They cost more than $400 each. Organizers say they've tried to minimize the increase in price, but the rising costs of running the show obviously making it hard. They're also trying to recoup lost revenues when the festival was canceled for 2 years because of the pandemic. And peak music festival season around the world, for many it means shelling out a lot of money and dealing with a lot of crowds as local economies get, of course, a big boost. Big events bring thousands of fans to cities and venues. Summer tours may rake in over $1.5 billion in sales on tickets and merchandise. But with that comes inflation. Sweden saw restaurant and hotel prices rise 0.3% on the month just because of the Beyonce tour. Still, cities will see a boost in revenue and profits. For instance, Taylor Swift's concerts could bring in more than $4 billion for the cities that she is performing in. And for more on these music festivals and their economic impact, Joseph Williams, former senior editor at the U.S. News and World Report. You know, this is a fun story, but kind of an obvious story too, right? Celebrities come into town, they have a big concert, the fans have to book hotel rooms, they have to eat restaurants, they do all the fun things, and likely they probably stay an extra day or two to see their friends and family if they have any there. Is this similar to a big sporting event, these concerts, or is it a little bit different?
Well, it's different and the same. I mean, there are celebrities and sporting events, and then there's Beyonce, okay? I mean, Beyonce is arguably one of the biggest pop stars in the world right now, and she's on a tour for first in several years. And there are a couple things at work here. The first is the fact that she is a global pop star with global reach. The second thing is that Sweden had some of the cheapest prices of tickets on her tour. Some of the seats in the U.S. were starting at like $1,000. So while she has the cachet to draw fans, this was an extra enticement because the exchange rate in Sweden was particularly low against the U.S. dollar. The seats were cheaper. The flights were easier to get to, and you couldn't get to a Beyonce show in a major city because they were selling out like that, even though the ticket prices were sky high compared to some other smaller acts in smaller venues. So it just demonstrates the power of the Beehive and the fact that she's a phenomenal performer who can literally move markets.
Right. Okay. Now, to be fair, and you are almost as young as I am, I think, maybe even a little younger. It's not the first time there has been pop stars that travel the world, right? From Madonna to Michael Jackson. I mean, this has always been the case. I mean, Beyonce, while she is special, she is not the only celebrity to travel. And back in those days, tickets were a couple $100 maybe for the show. Today, we're talking about thousands. The amount of inflation, if you look at for ticket prices, is unattainable for 98% of most people. And that's why we don't want kids to watch this segment, because they'll be like, well, I want to go to Sweden and see Beyonce. Isn't part of this still the aftermath of the pandemic, where everybody says, I will pay whatever it costs to go to that concert? $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. There seems to be no limit.
And it's crazy, right? And you're absolutely right. You put your finger on something very important, that the average fan can't shell out $1,000 to see Beyonce or Taylor Swift, let's say, or Bruce Springsteen, some of the biggest acts around. And you're absolutely right. Michael Jackson, Prince, they were top draws in their day. And it was really amazing to try to get a ticket. But the ticket situation back then, back in the olden days, was a lot better than it is now. Back then, there weren't internet competitions. Back then, there weren't speculators who were hoovering up all these seats and reselling them on the market at a premium. Back then, there was Ticketmaster and Live Nation, two of the largest players in this particular area, weren't gouging prices the way they are now. You might have heard earlier this week, or I believe it was last week, Joe Biden made this huge announcement that junk fees were going to be set up front when you go to buy a ticket. So you have all these, along with the pent-up demand of people not being able to go anywhere during the pandemic, and now all of a sudden your favorite pop star is going out on tour, and yet you still struggle, A, to get a ticket, and if you can get a ticket, it might cost you a month's pay, depending on who you're seeing and where you're seeing them perform. So there is a lot of economic factors involved here, not the least of which is the fact that there are several monopolies going on in those people who not only promote the concerts, but also handle the ticket sales.
Right, and then I think about, obviously the cities benefit from a financial perspective, but there are some downsides to cities, right? You're dealing with a lot of tourists who are coming in for a couple days. They don't live there. They potentially could cause crime in cities as well. Then you have the scalping issue. I mean, not everything is necessarily positive. Tell me about these cities. Do they court people like Taylor Swift to come to their cities because there's a benefit, or is it the other way around?
Usually it's equal parts both. You're looking at a city that has a venue that has the capacity to host a Taylor Swift or a Bruce Springsteen. So that's number one. That has to be tops on the list. Second on the list is a lot of cities would like to court these acts because they do provide an economic boom. I mean, Sweden's inflation rate notwithstanding, they probably pocketed several $1 million into city coffers just from the tourists who are coming to see Beyonce or coming to see Taylor Swift or Bruce Springsteen, who's going to perform there later on. So there is an incentive, just like there's an incentive to host a World Cup game or the Olympics, let's say. But the downside is very much among the locals who see people swarm into their cities, maybe not treated with the utmost respect that they might have otherwise. I mean, Amsterdam is very much an example that comes to mind where they banned lad boys from Britain because they were doing things like urinating in the streets. They were smoking pot openly, being rowdy and causing a horrible time for people who actually live there. So there is an upside and a downside. A lot of times the bottom line is the bottom dollar, and that's what cities mostly are looking at when they encourage these acts to play their towns and encourage fans to come see their favorite performers at a discount price.
This is kind of an awkward question, but this is the situation today. And it seems to me the trends are getting more and more extreme, right? Fans are getting upset, they can't get tickets. You have stars that become superstars and superstars. There's only so many seats to go around. What does this concert live venue look like, say, in 5 years from now?
If the trends continue, it doesn't look very good, to be honest. I mean, we're talking about performers that are becoming ever more popular, people who are willing or have the capital to pay top dollar and suck up all these seats, speculators who will buy and resell to that upper echelon crowd. So the average fan is getting boxed out of these things. Now, unless there's some drastic action taken among people who promote these concerts, people who sell the tickets, who are very much sometimes the same people, there's going to be a squeeze and the average fan is going to get left out. So the future doesn't look good right now. But the good news is that people are starting to pay attention. There are consumer advocates who are demanding that Congress do something, and there is attention being paid to this issue.
Well, I guess for now the industry took a hit during the pandemic, and I guess they're making it all back in a week or so. Joseph, good to see you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.